Right now, in your kitchen, in your refrigerator, there are foods sitting that you will reheat this week. Foods you reheat regularly. Foods you probably consider healthy choices. And the moment you press that button on your microwave or turn up the heat on that stove, you are triggering a series of chemical transformations that most people have absolutely no idea are happening. This is not fear-mongering. This is not about minor digestive discomfort or food poisoning. This is about what happens at the molecular level when you reheat certain foods. Transformations that research has directly connected to cancer risk, chronic inflammation, and accelerated cellular aging. I am Dr. Sten Ekberg, and I have spent the last 20 years studying the intersection between food chemistry and chronic disease prevention. Today, I am going to walk you through 5 foods that sit in virtually every refrigerator in the world. Foods that are completely safe to eat fresh. Foods that become genuinely dangerous when reheated. And I'm going to show you exactly what to do instead. If you have ever wondered why reheating food sometimes feels different, why it smells different, tastes slightly off, or leaves you feeling sluggish, this video explains why. And more importantly, it gives you the tools to protect yourself and your family starting today. Before we continue, I want to be transparent about my background because in today's world, where health information is everywhere and medical advice comes from everyone, you deserve to know who is actually giving you information and whether that person is qualified to do so. I completed my medical degree with specialized training in preventive medicine and nutritional biochemistry. Over the past 2 decades, my work has focused specifically on understanding how food preparation methods, cooking, storage, and reheating alter the chemical composition of what we eat and how those changes interact with our cells and metabolism. For this video, I have reviewed the latest research from multiple peer-reviewed sources, the International Journal of Food Sciences, the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry, and publications from the World Health Organization. Every claim I make is backed by published evidence. I am not here to sell supplements. I am not here to create panic. I am here because the gap between what science knows and what the general public knows has become dangerous. Billions of people make reheating decisions every single day based on convenience, not chemistry. Children in school lunches, office workers in break rooms, busy parents trying to save time, and most of them have never been told what we are about to discuss. Here is a statistic that should matter to you. According to the World Health Organization, approximately 1 in 6 deaths worldwide is associated with dietary factors. Not just poor nutrition, but specifically how food is prepared, stored, and consumed. The compounds we are about to discuss, compounds that form when certain foods are reheated, have been classified by the International Agency for Research on Cancer as Group 2A carcinogens. That classification means there is probable evidence that these compounds can cause cancer in humans. Now, I want to be clear about something. Eating reheated food once or twice is not going to cause cancer. The human body has remarkable repair systems, but what concerns researchers, and what should concern you, is chronic repeated exposure. Someone reheating rice 3 times a week. Someone microwaving spinach daily. Someone eating reheated pasta 5 nights a week for years. Over time, these exposures accumulate. The damage compounds, the inflammation becomes chronic, and the cellular environment shifts toward the conditions where disease develops. I have had patients come to me with precancerous lesions, with inflammatory bowel conditions, with metabolic dysfunction. And when we trace back their habits, reheating is almost always part of the pattern. Not the only cause, but a contributor. A modifiable risk factor that could have been prevented with simple knowledge. That is why I am making this video. Before I break down each food, you need to understand 3 fundamental chemical mechanisms. These are not theoretical. They are reactions that happen in your kitchen every single time you apply heat to certain foods. Fats and oils are chemically unstable. When they are heated once, a process called oxidation begins. Double bonds in fatty acids break apart. Reactive oxygen species form. But here is the critical part. When that same fat or oil is heated again, oxidation does not start fresh. It continues from where it left off, accelerating exponentially. The byproducts, compounds like malondialdehyde, and acrolein, are genotoxic. That word means they cause direct damage to DNA. Your cells have mechanisms to repair this damage, but only to a point. Repeated exposure overwhelms the repair systems. Certain vegetables, particularly leafy greens and root vegetables, contain naturally occurring nitrates. In fresh form, harmless. But when cooked and stored, bacteria naturally present in the food begin converting those nitrates into nitrites. This is not contamination. This is a normal biological process. When you apply heat again, those nitrites react with amino acids present in the food to form nitrosamines. The World Health Organization has classified nitrosamines as probable human carcinogens. They are among the most potent dietary carcinogens identified by modern science. Third, bacterial toxin reactivation. Certain bacteria produce heat-stable toxins. This means that boiling, microwaving, or pan heating does not destroy these toxins. The bacteria themselves die, but the toxic compounds they produced while multiplying during storage survive the reheating completely intact. Your immune system then has to mount a response to these toxins. If this happens once, no problem. If it happens repeatedly, week after week, the result is chronic low-grade inflammation throughout your digestive tract. These three mechanisms, lipid peroxidation, nitrosamine formation, and bacterial toxin exposure, are the foundation for everything I'm about to explain. Keep them in mind as we go through each food. Let me start with rice because it is the most commonly reheated food on the planet. More than half the world's population eats rice daily, and in virtually every household that cooks rice, people reheat it. Here is what happens. When rice is cooked and then cools, it creates an almost perfect environment for a bacterium called Bacillus cereus. This organism is naturally present in raw rice grains. Standard cooking temperatures kill the active bacteria, but they do not destroy the bacterial spores, which are essentially hardened survival capsules designed to survive extreme conditions. As your rice cools on the counter or in the refrigerator, those spores begin to germinate. They multiply. And while they multiply, they produce two different toxins. One causes vomiting, the other causes diarrhea and gastrointestinal distress. Here is the part that most people do not understand. When you reheat that rice, whether in a microwave, on a stove, or in an oven, the heat kills the living bacteria. But the toxins they have already produced are heat stable. They survive the reheating completely intact. You eliminate the bacteria, but leave the toxins in your food. Now, in the short term, if the bacterial load was high, you might experience food poisoning, nausea, vomiting, cramping. But most of the time, the toxin load is low enough that you do not notice acute symptoms. What you do not see is the chronic damage happening at the cellular level. These heat-stable toxins trigger an inflammatory response in your gut lining every single time you consume them. If you are reheating rice multiple times a week, your intestinal lining is under constant microscopic assault. Over months and years, this chronic inflammation creates the exact cellular environment where gastrointestinal cancers develop. Research has clearly established that chronic intestinal inflammation is one of the most significant risk factors for colorectal cancer, gastric cancer, and pancreatic cancer. What to do instead? Cook rice fresh whenever possible. If you must store it, cool it completely within 1 hour of cooking. Spread it on a shallow tray, not piled deep, so the temperature drops quickly. This prevents the bacterial spores from waking up and multiplying. Refrigerate within that hour. Consume within 24 hours. And crucially, reheat once and only once. Do not reheat the same portion of rice twice. Each reheating cycle compounds the risk. Spinach is celebrated as one of the healthiest foods on earth. It is packed with iron, folate, vitamins, and powerful antioxidants. Every health expert recommends eating more of it, and they are absolutely right. When you eat spinach fresh or cooked once and eaten immediately. The problem arises when people follow the common meal prep habit. Cook a large batch of spinach on Sunday, refrigerate it, and then reheat portions throughout the week. Here is what is happening during that storage period. Spinach, along with kale, Swiss chard, arugula, and beets, contains very high concentrations of naturally occurring nitrates. In their fresh state, these nitrates are beneficial. They support cardiovascular health and help regulate blood pressure. But once spinach is cooked and refrigerated, bacteria naturally present on the leaf surface begin an enzymatic conversion process. Those harmless nitrates are transformed into nitrites. The longer the cooked spinach sits, the more this conversion progresses. When you reheat that spinach, two things happen simultaneously. The heat drives further nitrite formation, and the heat also catalyzes a reaction between those nitrites and amino acids present in the spinach, producing nitrosamines. Remember that word, nitrosamines. The International Agency for Research on Cancer classifies nitrosamines as probable human carcinogens. They are genotoxic, meaning they penetrate directly into cell nuclei and damage DNA. They do not work from the outside. They work from within the genetic machinery itself. A single nitrosamine molecule can damage the cellular blueprint your body uses to build and repair everything. If your cells are exposed to small amounts regularly, the accumulated DNA damage eventually becomes too much for repair systems to handle. Mutations accumulate, and mutated cells are what become cancerous. Studies have specifically linked high dietary nitrosamine exposure to increased risk of gastric cancer, esophageal cancer, and colorectal cancer. What to do instead? Cook leafy greens in the quantity you will eat immediately. Do not meal prep spinach for the week. If you have leftover cooked spinach, eat it cold. Cold does not trigger the nitrosamine forming reaction. Or prepare fresh spinach when you need it. It takes 5 minutes. The protection is worth it. Chicken is the world's most popular lean protein. It is recommended by doctors, nutritionists, and fitness experts. Most people believe chicken is one of the safest, healthiest proteins they can eat, and it is, until you reheat it improperly. When chicken is first cooked, proteins in the muscle tissue undergo chemical changes. Amino acids break apart and recombine. This is normal, but when you reheat cooked chicken, especially at high temperatures, a process called protein oxidation accelerates. This oxidation produces compounds called heterocyclic amines, or HCAs. HCAs are among the most extensively studied dietary carcinogens in scientific literature. Once they enter your body, your liver breaks them down into highly reactive compounds that can bind directly to your DNA. This DNA binding can produce mutations, particularly in tumor suppressor genes, the genes that prevent cells from becoming cancerous. But there is another problem specific to reheating chicken: microwave danger zones. A microwave does not heat food uniformly the way an oven does. Instead, it excites water molecules to generate heat. But different parts of the same piece of chicken have different water content, different density, different fat distribution. This means some parts reach temperatures that kill all bacteria. Other parts, just centimeters away, stay at temperatures where dangerous bacteria not only survive but actively multiply. These are called cold spots, and you cannot see them. The outside might be scorching hot, while the interior is perfectly warm for bacterial growth. Two bacteria make this specifically terrifying with poultry: Salmonella and Campylobacter. Both are present in raw poultry at very high rates. Proper initial cooking eliminates them. But if the chicken is recontaminated after cooking, from your hands, cutting board, or utensils, and then only partially reheated in a microwave, you have created an incubator. The inflammatory cascade triggered by a Salmonella or Campylobacter infection is severe and direct. Your immune system mobilizes, your gut becomes inflamed, and your pancreas is pulled into the inflammatory response repeatedly, week after week. This chronic pancreatic inflammation is one of the precursor states to pancreatic cancer. What to do instead? If you must reheat chicken, use an oven at moderate temperature, covered tightly with foil, for 15 to 20 minutes. The moist-trapped heat reaches every part uniformly. No cold spots, no uneven heating. Or eat leftover chicken cold, shredded into salads, mixed into wraps, combined with other ingredients. Cold chicken eliminates every single risk we just discussed. Now we get to one of the most commonly reheated foods that almost nobody talks about: pasta. Spaghetti, penne, fettuccine, linguine. Billions of people reheat pasta multiple times a week without giving it a second thought. When pasta is first cooked, the starch gelatinizes. The starch granules absorb water and swell. This is a normal cooking process. But something else also happens. When starchy foods like pasta are exposed to high temperatures, natural sugars in the pasta react with amino acids in a process called the Maillard reaction. This creates that appealing brown color and complex flavor. As part of that reaction, a compound called acrylamide forms. The International Agency for Research on Cancer classifies acrylamide as a group 2, a probable human carcinogen. Here is what makes reheated pasta specifically dangerous compared to freshly cooked pasta. After the pasta cools and sits in your refrigerator, something remarkable happens. The surface of the pasta dries out slightly. Sugars and amino acids concentrate on that dry surface. The starch undergoes partial retrogradation. It becomes more crystalline, denser. When you reheat that pasta, especially if you pan fry it with oil to crisp it up, those concentrated sugars and amino acids on the surface are exposed to high heat again, under much more favorable chemical conditions than during the original cooking. The result is acrylamide formation that is meaningfully higher than what was produced during the first cooking. You are essentially re-intensifying the carcinogenic compound formation process. Additionally, when pasta sits refrigerated, the beneficial resistant starch that formed during cooling, starch that is actually protective for your metabolic health, is destroyed by reheating. What was gentle on your blood sugar becomes a rapid glucose spike. Your pancreas has to mount an emergency insulin response. If this happens regularly, pancreatic beta cells become exhausted from repeated emergency production events. Progressive beta cell exhaustion is a documented pathway toward type 2 diabetes, and more importantly for this discussion, toward the cellular dysfunction that precedes pancreatic cancer. What to do instead? Eat cooked pasta cold whenever possible. Pasta salad with good olive oil, vegetables, and vinegar is genuinely delicious and completely safe. The resistant starch remains intact. Zero additional acrylamide formation. If you must heat pasta, use very gentle, low heat, just enough to take the chill off. Never hot. And absolutely never pan fry already cooked pasta in oil. That combines every danger we have discussed. The final food on this list surprises people because mushrooms are considered healthy. They are rich in beta-glucans, ergothioneine, and polysaccharides that support immune function. Nutritionists recommend them. They appear on every superfood list. But mushrooms share a critical characteristic with spinach that very few people know about. They are very high in naturally occurring nitrates. Additionally, mushrooms contain high concentrations of glutamates, compounds related to MSG, and nucleotides that are metabolically processed similarly to purines. When mushrooms are cooked and stored, bacterial activity begins converting their nitrate content into nitrites, exactly as happens with spinach. When you reheat mushrooms, particularly in a microwave where the heating is uneven, the conversion of nitrites into nitrosamines accelerates. You end up with a dish that looks like mushrooms but has undergone significant chemical transformation. Furthermore, mushrooms have a high water content. When reheated, this water is unevenly distributed, creating localized hotspots and cool zones where bacterial multiplication can occur if any recontamination has happened during storage. The compounds formed, both the nitrosamines and any bacterial byproducts from improper storage, are then absorbed in your small intestine. They travel to your liver for detoxification, putting stress on hepatic function. Over time, chronic exposure contributes to liver inflammation, which is itself a risk factor for multiple cancers, including pancreatic cancer. What to do instead? Cook mushrooms fresh when you plan to eat them. Mushrooms only take 5 to 7 minutes to cook. If you have leftover cooked mushrooms, eat them cold the next day in a salad or with other foods. Do not reheat them. Do not store cooked mushrooms for more than 6 to 8 hours, even refrigerated. Let me bring this together into something actionable. 5 foods, 5 distinct mechanisms. One clear principle. Certain foods undergo dangerous chemical transformations when reheated. Rice. Bacterial toxins survive reheating. Cool within 1 hour. Eat within 24 hours. Reheat once only. Spinach and leafy greens. Nitrate to nitrosamine conversion accelerates with heat. Eat cooked greens cold or cook fresh when needed. Chicken. Protein oxidation and microbial cold spots create dual dangers. Use oven heating or eat cold. Pasta. Acrylamide formation intensifies on reheated pasta. Eat cold or use minimal, gentle heat. Mushrooms. Nitrate conversion and uneven heating create bacterial and chemical hazards. Cook fresh or eat cold. The pattern across all five is the same. Cold is safe. Fresh is safe. Gentle, even heating to a specific temperature is safe. High temperature reheating is where the danger lies. What I am asking you to change is not your diet. I am asking you to change your reheating habits. Cook smaller portions so there are fewer leftovers. Eat cold leftovers whenever possible. Use oven heating instead of microwave when you must reheat. Consume leftovers within 24 hours. These are small changes, but practice consistently over years. They meaningfully reduce your exposure to compounds that research has directly connected to cancer risk and chronic disease. I understand this information might feel overwhelming. You might be thinking about how many times this week you have reheated rice or spinach or chicken. But I want to tell you something important. The human body has an extraordinary capacity for recovery. Chronic inflammation can decrease. Damaged cells are constantly being replaced by new cells. The conditions we have discussed are not a death sentence. They are a starting point. Every different choice you make from this moment forward moves you toward better health. The research I have presented is not controversial. These mechanisms are not theoretical. They are published in peer-reviewed journals from institutions around the world. The World Health Organization acknowledges these risks. The International Agency for Research on Cancer has classified these compounds. This is not new information. What is new is that you now know it. Most people do not. And that knowledge puts you in a position to make better decisions for yourself and your family. If someone you care about, your parent, your sibling, your partner, someone you know who reheat rice every single week, has never heard this information, share this video with them, not to scare them, simply to give them the knowledge to make informed decisions about their health. If you found this information valuable, I encourage you to subscribe. I publish videos weekly on the intersection between food, chemistry, and disease prevention. No hype, no supplements to sell. Just evidence-based information translated into practical guidance you can actually use. Leave a comment below. Which of these 5 foods surprised you most? And if there is a specific food you reheat regularly that you would like me to investigate in a future video, let me know. Everything presented in this video is educational and informational in nature. It is not intended as personal medical advice, medical diagnosis, or treatment recommendation. The chemical mechanisms I have described are real and published in scientific literature. However, cancer is multifactorial. Individual risk depends on genetics, overall diet, lifestyle factors, and many variables I do not know about you personally. If you have concerns about dietary carcinogens or cancer risk, please consult with your physician, registered dietitian, or qualified healthcare professional who knows your complete medical history. I am Dr. Sten Ekberg. Protecting your health begins with knowledge. Make informed choices.